Please be seated. The court is now back in session. Once again, the floor is given to the prosecution to continue putting questions to this witness. Parties are reminded that the prosecution and the lead co-lawyer for civil parties are allocated half a day only, and the defense will be allocated for the afternoon session. So please try to make your questions potentially to the facts of the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Pikchim, I'm moving on now to the period after liberation on the 17th of April 1975. On the 17th of April 1975, what position did you hold within District 105?
I was still in the same position. There is a member of the district committee. And I received people who were evacuated from Phnom Penh for them to settle in the cooperative.
When you say you still had the same position, was that as the Deputy Secretary of District 105?
At that time, I was a member.
I want to refresh your memory by referring to an interview, and I'm going to quote word for word what you said and ask you if you stand by the answer. I'm referring to D232/14, English 00379170, Khmer 00373457, and French 004-26177, when you said, when the war ended on the 17th of April 1975, I was the Deputy Secretary of District 105. Do you stand by that answer? Yes or no?
President, Mr. Pikchim, do you understand the last question put to you by the prosecution? It seems simple enough for you to respond. Can you do it? Witness, yes. I myself was not sure, so I need some time to think about it. At that time, yes, I was the Deputy Secretary of the district. That is after the liberation.
My next questions are going to be about what happened to Lon Nol soldiers immediately after the evacuation. Again, I'm going to read part of your interviews. I refer to the interview on the 27th of August.
Mr. President.
President, witness, please wait. The International Defense Council for Noon Chia, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before my learned friend starts reading the relevant passage from these statements, I think we have now come to the point that your chamber has previously indicated as a sensitive moment in the testimony of this particular witness. We all know why this witness is here. So at this point, I think we should now only hear open-ended questions from the side of the prosecution. Thank you.
I'm in your hands, Mr. President. If a special category of evidence is now being introduced, whenever Lon Nol soldiers are mentioned, the prosecution are obliged to ask open questions, then of course I will. There are, though, many very important issues in this case which have been covered without open questions. I invite the Chamber not to start introducing special categories and to allow the general rule to stand, which you've already referred to today, that the prosecution is entitled to read to a witness an extract from an OCIJ interview.
President, yes, you may proceed. The prosecution, please continue.
To give everyone the relevant ERNs again, English 0038 0135. Khmer 0037 3467. French 0042 6205. And I'm reading word for word. In early 1975, immediately after the liberation, there were not yet any prisoners who were the evacuees from Phnom Penh. I saw some families of the Lon Nol soldiers. When I asked the wives of those soldiers about their husbands, they told me that the military took out their husbands during the journey. The phrase, "the military took out," meant disappearance. So most of those women were widows. Do you stand by that answer?
Yes.
Next, I would like to move on to the subject of the power of the sector. And I want to talk about an occasion when you released an arrested person. I need to give numbers. It's the interview of the 27th of August, which is D232/17. The English ERN is 00380138. Khmer 0037 34 70 through 71, and French 00426 209. The interviewer asked you, did you ever forget making any report about certain matters to the higher level up? And your answer was, one time there was a person arrested by the militias because of a minor problem. I met and spoke with the arrested and the militia unit, and then I decided to release that person. Later, Tassom scolded me and asked why I dared to make such a decision. He warned me not to take a personal view. I apologised to him and admitted my guilt. Now, firstly, do you stand by that answer?
Yes.
So we're clear about Tassom. When Tassom was scolding you, what position did Tassom have within the sector above you?
He was the sector secretary.
To be clear on the timings, you said in your interview of this day, the relevant English 00380136, Khmer 00373467, and French 000426206. You said that it was in May/June of 1976 that you became the interim district secretary of District 105. Do you stand by that answer?
Yes, that is correct.
So, Mr. Petchim, is this right, that we have this position that you as the district secretary had released this person, and Soam as the sector secretary was then scolding you? Do I have that right?
What I did was correct. What somebody else work was somebody else's affair, so I could not say.
Do you remember now who this person was that you decided to release before Tom scolded you?
The name of the person was Wong.
And can you help me on why you decided to release him?
We worked together. He was in charge of a market, and I did not see that he made any mistake or was a traitor. So it was a nature of a class contradiction, and I requested to spare him. So I reported that he was a good person, and then it was agreed that he was released.
And why was Tassoum scolding you?
He wanted us to abide by the disciplines.
I'd like to move on, please, to ask you a question that's based on E3/135. That's a revolutionary flag from June 1977. Now, in this document, Mr. Petchim, we learn that an honorary red flag was awarded to Trum Kuk district because of its performance in the year of 1976. Can you help me, please, at all about this honorary red flag being presented to Trum Kuk district?
Yes, I knew about that. It was a race that the Trum Kuk district be awarded, and that was also for 2 other districts, including Samlot, and Trum Kuk was one of the 3 districts. They appreciate all the work we did in the district, and not just the leadership level within the district, because within the 3 districts that were awarded, there was a redundance of rice production or output.
Thank you. When did you find out that you had, or that the district had been awarded the honorary red flag?
I cannot recall the month. It was actually after the harvest season, but I cannot recall the exact date. The announcement was made during the study session, and the flag was shown to everybody.
Did somebody from the upper echelons come to present the flag? Or how was it handed over?
On that day, the upper echelon was represented by Tamok, and then the sector's party, that is Sector 13, and Tamok made the announcement at that time. It was similar to a gold medal. that is for that kind of award.
And the meeting when Tamok mentioned the award, was this a sector level meeting or was it a district level meeting? Can you help me?
It was at the sector level.
And can I ask, were you present at this sector level meeting when the award was made?
Yes, I participated, and I was the one who received the award. That is the flag. It was considered a gold medal, and I was the recipient of that award. And in fact, it was the flag that was represented to us, and it represents the gold medal.
And did you display the flag in the district, or what happened to the flag?
At that time, actually, Com kept the flag, and later on, Com became sick and did not know what happened.
I'm going to move on to the subject of enemies when you were the district secretary. And the first source document for the question is E3/760, which is a revolutionary flag, issue 6 from June 1976. So this would be from the time when you were appointed as the district secretary. It talks about at page English 00509615, French 00487760, and Khmer 00062850. It talks about the inside enemy and the outside enemy, and being constantly vigilant. Can you explain this from your experience? Inside and outside enemies.
Inside enemy refers to the enemy within the rank of the revolution, within the army, or within the liberated zone. As for the outside enemy, it refers to the enemy coming from the outside. For example, from Takeo province or from Phnom Penh. And the inside enemy refers to those enemies existed within the liberated zone. Or the zone under the control of the Khmerus at that time, because those zones were considered the liberated zones.
Thank you, that's clear. I'd like to move next on to E3/742, which is a revolutionary flag from April 1977. And in some instructions at English page 00478501, Khmer 006 2991 and French 004 99758. This instruction is given. It is imperative to indoctrinate and whip up the masses into a force to seek out the enemy, assess the enemy, analyze the enemy, track the enemy, pressure the enemy, capture the enemy, to smash the enemy, and to make the enemy like a rat surrounded by a crowd of people, beating and smashing it. Now, Mr. Petchim, did you ever receive instructions from the sector to assess, track, capture and smash the enemy?
We studied about that, and the information was relayed by the sector for our implementation, and I used to attend such a study session. That is regarding the smashing of the enemy. The word smashed, it means to eradicate or to get rid of them from the society. It doesn't necessarily mean to kill them. That is, we get rid of that kind of regime and return the regime to those compatriot ones.
I'll ask you a question just in a minute about the word smash. But can I deal with one other matter just quickly? And it's about teaching you received from Nuon Chea. And you covered this in E3/401. The relevant ERNs are English 0038 1028, Khmer 0037 3478, and French 004 26217. And I'm reading word for word. I saw Nuon Chea once when I went to study in Phnom Penh, at which time Nuon Chea was the teacher. That was training for all the district secretaries of the entire country. Do you stand by that answer?
Yes.
Mr. Petchim, can I ask, where did this training take place?
It was conducted at Borai Kaila.
Obviously, I wasn't there. Can you help me, please, on roughly how many district secretaries were there at Borai Kaila for this meeting?
Let me clarify. It was not only for the district committees, it was also for the sector committees, but the sector committee session was held before the session for the district committees where I participated. So for the session that I attended, it was for the district committees, including all the members. There were more than 800 participants through my best estimation, because other members from the various offices and the ministries also participated in that meeting, and it lasted for almost a month. And it was closed on, the study session was closed on the 31st of December that year, because by the 1st of January, we went for a visit throughout the country for 1 week, and then we returned to our base. So we actually went around visiting various locations throughout the country for 1 week. That's all.
Can I just ask some more questions about the meetings where Nguyen Chia was a teacher? Who else was a teacher at this study session? Was it just Nguyen Chia, or were there other teachers as well?
There was only him.
You talked about it being in December of a year. Can you help me, Mr. Pechchim, what year this was? And remember, you became the district secretary, you've said, in May or June of 1976. So my question is, can you help us? December in what year?
It was December 1975. Because the visit started on the 1st of January 1976. However, there was a study session that was held before the session that I participated. So I actually attended the second study session. However, I did not know about the nature of the first study session. And the first session was instructed by Pol Pot, and for the second session, the instructor was Nguyen Chia.
Now, concentrating on the session that you were at with Nguyen Chia, how many times was he your teacher? Just once, or were there more than one occasions when he was speaking to you?
It was only him throughout the entire session.
I think you've already said, but I may have missed it. How long did the session go on for in days or weeks when Nguyen Chia was your only teacher?
It was only him who actually gave instructions. The study session plus the visit lasted for 1 full month. So when we concluded the study session, we went for a visit for 1 week throughout the country, and then we returned to our base. That's all I knew about the study session that I participated, and I did not know about the first session, although I knew that the sector level participated in the first study session. And the one who presented the document during the first study session was Pol Pot. Because after the first study session, then the revolutionary flag magazines started to be published.
Sorry, forgive me. I just want to break it down in weeks. Can you help me? How many weeks was the study session involving Nguyen Chia, and how many weeks was the tour that followed on?
I already told you the tour was for 1 week, and the study session lasted for a little bit more than 20 days. So in total is 1 month.
Thank you. Now, during the 20-odd days when Nguyen Chia was the teacher, was he teaching you every day or every week? Can you help me on the frequency of his teaching?
For the study session, he would come to present the document, and that is for all the participants. Everybody actually took note of everything that was presented by him. At that time, we took note by hands because there was no revolutionary magazine yet. So we actually had to resort to shorthand writings in order to include everything that he presented. So we had to use acronyms. And there were also other people belongs to his group who actually took notes during the teaching and study session. And then we would break out into small groups for discussion, and by that time he would left and return to his place. And then when the discussion concluded, by next day, then he would come back again to present new document. And that's the routine of the training session.
Now, when Nguyen Chia was teaching you, I mean, did he ever cover subjects like internal and external enemies?
Response: Yes, he did. He covered all aspects. Without having covered this subject of enemies, people would never know how to identify enemies from friends.
I want to move on to a fresh subject, if I may. And this is to do with the structure of the sector and its involvement with confessions. And again, I'm quoting word for word from your interview. It is E3/401, English 0038 1024/5, Khmer 00373 474/5, and French 0042 6213/4. And the interviewer asked this question: can you explain to us what they did with the confessions sent from the Krang Tachan Security Centre, and where did they take them to? And your response was, the confessions and reports which were in the enclosed envelope and sent from the Krang Tachan Security Centre to the sector had to go through the district first. Do you stand by that answer?
Response: Yes, I do.
And I just next want to deal with what sort of instruction the sector would give. And you said this, and I'm reading word for word. If there were some names in the confessions were crossed by the red ink, it meant that the sector level had decided that these names were to be purged. To purge meant to kill. Do you stand by that answer?
Response: Yes, I do.
Now, if the sector had put red ink, meaning kill, was it then sent to Krang Tachan for them to implement, or what was the procedure after the red ink?
Response: From the sector, then they would be sent to Krang Tachan. All would be sent to that place. No one would be spared.
Thank you. Mr. Petcham, I'm going to move now to some reports, and these are reports from the Trum Kok District records that we have on our case file. So I'm going to read a selection of some topics in the reports and see if you can help me. These reports are collectively within E3/2048. And the first one I'd like to refer to is a report with a number on the document, is the best I can give everyone, and it's 00079087/88. That's not an ERN number. That is the number of the document in its original form. But Mr. Pekchim, this was a document where the name Chim appeared in the document and it was shown to you in the interview. Do you remember seeing a document with the name Chim on it in the interview?
Response: I think I was given this document, but I noted the person was by the name of Teng with the TH OENG, and I already said I didn't know the name.
I think that's right with your first answer. If I just try and help you, in interview D232/16 at English ERN 00379306, I believe the Khmer will be 00373390 and the French 00426197. You said that I can agree it could be my name, and you then started talking about a family that had not been arrested or tied up by you. Does that help you to refresh your memory?
Response: No, it doesn't.
I'm going to move on, Mr. Petchim. I'm dealing now with some reports that are sent from communes to Tram Kak district. And the first one I'd like to refer to, again, still within E3/2048, is item 000799089. This is a report from Chiang Tong from somebody called Moon. And I want to read the report to you and see if you can help. The report says, request to make a report to beloved Tram Kak district Angkar as follows. The enemy situation in our bases. After having received successive instructions from Angkar about being vigilant about the enemy and purging the enemy officers, we have tracked, examined and found, and then there's a list of some people. So my question for you, Mr. Petchim, is this. Is it right that Angkar gave instructions about purging enemy officers?
Response: Yes, it is. Correct.
The next report, still within E3/2048, it's item 00079090. And this, Mr. Petchim, is a report from a commune to District Angkar. And it says, the 106 military families smashed by Angkar, including those who died, totaling 393 persons. So can you confirm to us, please, that military families were smashed on instruction by Angkar?
Response: I don't remember this, and if I did it, I would have remembered it, but no, I don't recollect it.
I just want to be clear on that. You have said already that there were instructions from Angkar to track and purge enemy officers. But are you saying that you weren't personally involved in sending instructions to smash officers or soldiers of Lon Nol? Or help us?
Response: Yes.
I'll try and help now with some dates to clarify your last answer. When was it that you stopped being the district secretary in District 105?
Response: I don't remember the exact date, but it was after the liberation.
I think you said in the interview that you went to work at a rubber plantation in February 1977. Is that right?
Response: Yes, that the exact date. I already took note of it.
Now, I just want to go back to an earlier topic we were talking about, which was the red ink from the sector. Now, this... Mr. President, I think the witness was trying to say something. I didn't hear it, so I should give him the opportunity. I think he was trying to say something. No, I'm going to move on.
Response: I may have to ask you to verify the date again. Are you saying the February 1977 or 76? Witness: I would like to correct this date to make sure the record is clear. I left Tramkok on February 1976 because the study session was in January, so it is true that I would be there in February 1976. So that would be the precise date. And I met Tamok on my way when he asked me to perform my work. It was on my way back to the district office when the meeting was being held. Members of the district and commune were there in the office, and I was coming by motorbike from work, and I took that opportunity to say goodbye to them. And it was in 1976, not 1977.
Mr. Pikchim, it's very confusing with these dates, and I just want to be absolutely sure by reminding you about what you've said in the interviews and what you've already said in court today. Now, do you recall me putting part of your interview to you? I'll read it to you again just so that we're sure. It's D232/17, English ERN 00380136, Khmer 00373467, and French 00426206. And I'm reading word for word. After Tarkiev left, Soam told me to replace Tarkiev as the secretary. I recall that I became the secretary of District 105 about in May or June of 1976. Do you stand by that answer that it was May or June 1976 that you became the district secretary?
Response. His response is, I just would like to admit that there was another successor of mine before I took this position. And I was not actually the secretary of the district. I was more or less an acting secretary of the district because there was no such announcement to say that I was the district secretary on that date. Nonetheless, I would like to agree with you anyway that it would be in June that I would become the district secretary, because my memory perhaps does not serve me well, but I think that would be the date.
Thank you. That's entirely understandable about your memory. I just want to read perhaps one or two more of these reports to Trum Kok District and clarify the issue about soldiers. I'm referring to document D157.38. This is a report from Porpel Commune, if I've said it right, to Trum Kok District. And it's to request for advice from respected brother of the district party. It's dated the 11th of April, but there's no year given. And it says, for those people who hold a ranking position, we will send them out to you consecutively. Now, when you were the district secretary of District 105, how many people were arrested because they were soldiers? In other words, arrested to go to Krang Tachan.
Response: I don't know about this. I just don't know.
So I'm clear, Mr. Pekchim. Are you saying that when you were District Secretary, you don't know anything about the arrest?
Response: I don't know, I don't remember, and I had nothing to do with the arrests of the soldiers. Somebody else could have been in charge of this.
And I just want to clarify in one last theme about red ink on confessions. Now, I want to read you again one extract from your interview about these confessions. It's E3/401, English 003810240 through 5, Khmer 00373-474/5, and French 00426213 through 4. And this is about your involvement with confessions coming down from the sector. You said, I would read them if there were some names in the confessions that were crossed by the red ink. It meant the sector level had decided that these names were to be purged. To purge meant kill. Now, were some of these confessions with the red ink to do with former Lon Nol soldiers? Mr. President, I think I should ask the question again as I've had no response. I'll try and shorten it. Mr. Pekchim, when you read confessions with red ink on them, did some of those confessions refer to former Lon Nol soldiers?
Response: No, the confessions were not relevant to these Lon Nol soldiers. They were just civilians, and I said they should be released. Some of them should be released. I asked the base to take them back.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Pekchim. I've got no more questions. I understand the lead civil lawyers may, Mr. President, have wanted up to 10 minutes. I apologise because I've encroached slightly into that time.
The President. Thank you. Now we would like to hand over to the lead co-lawyers for the civil parties to put some questions.
Oui, merci. Thank you, Mr. President. Indeed, as the co-prosecutor indicated, I have no questions to put to the witness. However, my colleague, Counsel Sun, would require some 15 minutes in order to address his questions. Thank you.
President, you may proceed indeed. Counsel Hong Kum-soon, thank you very much, Mr. President and Your Honors, and good morning to the bench and to the witness and the court. And due to time constraints, I may now be straightforward to putting questions to the witness. I am Hong Kum-soon, and I have some questions for you, Mr. Jim. You testified before the co-prosecutor about the enemies, and you knew very well the term enemy and enemies themselves. Can you clarify before us whether there were any categories of enemies being determined at that time, if you remember? Response. When I said I knew the enemies, it's because I would like just to say that it was not my idea that everyone would be regarded as enemies. I understood that not everyone was enemy, and we should not be easily fooled to believe that everyone would be enemy, because people could accuse anyone of enemy. So everyone who lived together would be regarded as friends. Enemies would be living far apart from us. Counsel Hong Kum-soon, I thank you for this. Nonetheless, I would like you to kindly just say the term enemies. How do you understood enemies to be? Counsel Hong Kum-soon console is not activated. Response. Enemies were the opponents, those who opposed us and the country and the people. Hong Kum-soon. Another question, please. During the Democratic Cambodia regime in District 105 in particular, and you were the district secretary as you testified to the co-prosecutor. Now, regarding Krang Tachan Security Center, was this center meant to detain those who were accused of being enemies? Please answer again, as your mic was not yet activated. Response. Indeed, this center was for detaining people who were accused to having committed wrongdoings or offenses. Counsel, thank you. You said you requested for some release of the people from Krang Tachan Security Center. Do you know what happened to those who were not released? The President, Mr. Jim, you may now respond again, because you responded when the mic was not activated. So to make sure you be heard, then do it again. Response. I don't know what happened to them or where they should have gone, but I believe they died. Only some people who were spared, and I Those were the people that I requested for release, and they still now live in the village where I live. Counsel, thank you. Can you also explain to the people you said who disappeared or gone? Does that mean they all died? Response. Although I can't exactly say that they all died, it would not be wise to say so, because sometimes I would see one of them somewhere. I just come across them. So I can't say exactly that these people could have died 100%. Counsel, thank you. I would like to ask you another question. During the time when you were the secretary of the District 105 and in Tram Kok, when an ordinary person broke a hole or any kind of instrument, should they be accused of being an enemy? Response. During that period, when I heard about this, I would go and educate people that do not implicate people as an enemy when they only stole some sweet potato or like some roots that was not proper. Counsel, thank you. Now, regarding the evacuation of the population from Phnom Penh in the aftermath of 17th of April 1975, can you tell the chamber whether you saw some of them being evacuated to your district? Response. Yes, I saw them. They were happy. Rather, I was happy that these people came in great number to help us in the countryside. I was in the district. People were gathered from elsewhere, and they would be transported or brought to the cooperatives. And Council Hong Kam Soon, thank you very much. I'm sorry to interrupt you because we are running out of time. I would like to go to another question, please. Were the evacuees classified, for example, into categories of former Lone soldiers and so on and so forth? Response. That didn't happen in my area. I was in charge of looking after these people, but I did not know anything about this. And soldiers would also be in charge of managing the people. Counsel, thank you. By late of 1975 or in 1976, were there any evacuations of the people from District 105 of Sector 13 to the northwest and southwest zone? Response. I think I didn't quite understand your question. I asked you about the event in late 1975 and early 1976. What happened in District 105 of Sector 13? The question is, did you know whether people were evacuated from this district to the northwest and the southwest zones. Response. Yes, there was the evacuation of people to the northwest zone. Council, thank you. You mentioned about the award offer to you and your district. Can you tell the chamber what made you and the district receive such reward? Response. We successfully did great farming because we could achieve almost 3 tons per hectare. Council, thank you. Was that the plan rendered by the leadership of the Khmer Rouge or the Democratic Cambodia to ensure that people could have like 3 tons per hectare? Response. That was the plan by Angkar. It was rendered down to the people to ensure that this quota could be achieved. And I also was engaged in ensuring that it was achieved. Council Kum Soon, thank you very much. We are running out of time, and this is going to be my last question to you. You said that Krang Tachan Security Center was located in District 105, and you saw it there. Did you know that this center was there after 1975? Response. Krang Tachan Security Center was in District 105, but it was under the supervision of the sector. Question. After the 17th of after January 1979 liberation, were you convinced that people were killed during the Democratic Cambodia? Response. Yes, I was, and I believe that people were killed. Council Hong Kum Soon. Thank you, Mr. President. I have no further questions. The President. Thank you, Mr. Witness. Now it is appropriate time already for adjournment. The Chamber will adjourn until 1:30 p.m. Court officer is now directed to assist the witness and his duty counsel during the recess, and that they should be returned to the courtroom when the next session resumes. Security personnel are now directed to bring Mr. Kyew Sampon to his cell downstairs and have him return to the courtroom before 1:30 p.m. The court is adjourned.
សូមក្រោកឈរ